The 80s was a unique period of time for cars. Vehicle designers traded in their sleek curves for sharp corners, analog gauges for digital dashboards, and with heavy emission standards, V6 engines were really beginning to shine. The Z31 Nissan 300ZX is one of the best examples of an all-out 80s car. After two relatively similar generations of successful Z cars, Nissan decided to change the game with their new model. The 300ZX was the first car in the Z lineage to be branded as a Nissan rather than a Datsun. It was very much a car of its time. It ditched the inline 6 for a more standard V6 engine. The interior looked like the cockpit of a fighter jet. The car leaned in heavy on the cool factor, and as a result, they sold quite a lot of them. This is the left pedal, and here's the details on the Z31 Nissan 300ZX. The Z31 is a truly 80s car. In a time when car manufacturers were completely obsessed with sharp corners and aerodynamics, the 300ZX fit right in. Up until this point, the front and rear bumpers had gained a few inches with each new Z model. With the third generation, Nissan opted to follow the mainstream route of covering the bumpers with body panels, marking the end of the original Fairlady design. The car was 173.5 inches long, 49.5 inches tall, and had a wheelbase of 91.3 inches. Meaning it was slightly shorter in length and height than its predecessor, with the distance between the front and rear wheels slightly longer. Practically speaking though, the car was nearly the exact same size as the previous model. The flip-up headlights were intentionally designed to give a nod towards the bucket-style headlights that the Z car was so well known for. The 300ZX still retained the long hood and sloped rear hatch of the older models. It was just a lot more square with this one. The car weighed in at over 3,000 pounds, and at the time it was made, it was the heaviest in the lineup so far. The 300ZX stands out in the Z car lineage as the first model to ditch the inline 6 design for a more usual V6. The new engine was known as the VG30E. It was a 3-liter single overhead cam fuel-injected V6 that pushed out 160 horsepower and 173 pound-feet of torque. The engine was capable of accelerating the car from 0 to 60 miles an hour in 8.2 seconds with a quarter-mile time of 16.5 seconds. A turbocharged version of the engine, called the VG30ET, was also available. This variant upped the horsepower to just over 200, with torque topping out at 227 pound-feet. The turbo model dropped a full second off the 0 to 60 time and managed to complete the quarter mile in the low to mid 15s. You could either get a 5-speed manual transmission or a 4-speed automatic, both of which would run the power through Nissan's R200 open differential. However, by 1987, Nissan released an upgraded limited slip diff, a big performance enhancer on their part. Top speed was limited to around 130 to 140, depending on which combination of engine and transmission options you chose. The 300ZX retained a very similar suspension to the previous model, the 280ZX. Why they did this? I don't know. It's not a great suspension. I can say that with certainty because I have a 280ZX. The 300 has McPherson-type struts in the front, which are perfectly acceptable. In the back, however, it has semi-trailing arms, meaning that when you accelerate, the car squats a lot. This can be helpful accelerating in a straight line because the car is essentially putting more weight on the rear wheels. In any other situation, the design is kind of annoying, and there are aftermarket solutions to fix the issue. Don't get me wrong though, these cars handle pretty well, especially for their age. At the end of the day, the Z31 300ZX held undeniable performance upgrades over every Z car before it. The car was capable of faster track times, faster acceleration, and more creature comforts than the S30 or the S130. If you've been following this series, you may notice that while these increases in performance are prominent, they're not super exceptional upgrades, and Nissan did this on purpose. The 280Z and 280ZX sold extremely well in America. The Z was the best-selling two-seater coupe in the history of cars at the time. The 300ZX already looked radically different than the originals, and ditched the L-Series engine that had been a staple of these cars for over a decade. On top of that, this was the first Z to lose the Datsun name. Nissan knew the car needed to remind the driver that they were, in fact, still driving a Z car. It needed to feel like a Z, and it needed to act like a Z. And it did both of those things well, while still giving drivers the refinement of what was, at that time, a modern vehicle. Thank you guys for watching, and a special thank you to all of you that have been following this series so far. Next week we're going to cover the 4th generation Z car, the Z32 300ZX. So stay tuned. I'm Soda Pop. This is the Left Pedal. I will see you next time.